A billionaire took his mute daughter to the park playground, then froze in shock when a black woman made his daughter speak for the first time in her life. Do you know what happens when a billionaire's world stops spinning because of 7 whispered letters from a stranger? We've all felt the desperation of watching someone we love disappear into silence, of throwing money at problems that can't be bought or sold. This is the story of Harrison Wells, a man who had everything money could buy, except his daughter's voice, and Destiny Campbell, the woman whose simple story about a little yellow bird changed everything. But this isn't just a story about trauma and healing. It's about the shattering realization that sometimes, the most profound miracles come from the most unexpected places. But let's go back to how this miracle began, on a bitter February morning in Boston when hope seemed as frozen as the Charles River. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video and comment where you are watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. And trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's continue. Harrison Wells stood at the window of his corner office on the 42nd floor of one financial center, watching the morning commuters hurry through downtown crossing like ants seeking warmth. At 42, he possessed the kind of sharp-featured handsomeness that graced magazine covers, sandy brown hair always perfectly styled, and blue eyes that had once sparkled with ambition but now held the weight of 8 months of helplessness. His navy wool suit, tailored to perfection, couldn't hide the slight slump in his shoulders or the way his hands trembled when he thought no one was looking. The city stretched below him like a chessboard he'd mastered, every building representing a deal he'd closed, a company he'd acquired, a victory that had built his tech empire worth $3 billion. But none of it mattered anymore. Not when the most important person in his world hadn't spoken a single word since July 15th. Mr. Wells. His assistant knocked gently on the mahogany door. Dr. Peterson is here for your 9 o'clock. Harrison straightened his silk tie and forced his business mask into place. Send him in. Dr. Peterson entered with his usual briefcase full of charts and clinical observations. A thin man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses and the bedside manner of a textbook, he'd been Chloe's speech therapist for 6 months now. How was yesterday's session? Harrison asked, though the answer was always the same. She's making progress in her comfort levels. Chloe sat closer to me this time, even accepted a crayon. But still no vocalizations. Dr. Peterson adjusted his glasses. Trauma-induced selective mutism can take years to resolve, especially with the severity of what she witnessed. Harrison's jaw tightened. Years. His daughter might not speak for years. I want to increase the sessions to daily, Harrison said. Money isn't an issue. Mr. Wells, healing isn't always about frequency. Sometimes it's about finding the right connection, the right moment. Children often respond better to organic situations rather than clinical ones. Organic situations? Harrison's voice carried an edge. Doctor, my daughter watched her mother die in a car wreck. There's nothing organic about trauma that's severe. Dr. Peterson packed his notes carefully. Perhaps consider more social environments. Playgrounds, children's activities. Sometimes peer interaction can accomplish what we adults cannot. After the doctor left, Harrison walked to the framed photo on his desk. Rachel smiled back at him, her honey blonde hair catching sunlight, holding 3-year-old Chloe at Boston Common. They'd been so happy then, so whole. Now Rachel was gone, and Chloe lived in a world of silence that no amount of money could penetrate. His phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Patterson, Chloe's nanny. Chloe ate half her breakfast today. Small victory. She's asking for you with her eyes again. Harrison grabbed his coat. Some victories were more important than board meetings. Meanwhile, across the city in Dorchester. Malik, baby, hold still or your hair gonna look like you stuck your finger in a light socket. Destiny Campbell laughed as her 5-year-old son squirmed in the kitchen chair of their second-floor apartment on Blue Hill Avenue. At 28, Destiny had the kind of natural beauty that turned heads without trying. Her mahogany skin glowed with health, her amber eyes sparkled with warmth, and her smile could light up a room. This Tuesday morning, She wore a bright purple sweater that brought out the gold flecks in her eyes and jeans that had seen better days but were clean and well cared for. "Mommy, why we gotta go to the park when it's cold?" Malik asked, his dark eyes wide with curiosity. He had his mother's warm coloring and his father's stubborn cowlick that refused to lay flat. "Because, little man, you've been cooped up in this apartment for 3 days with that fever. Now that you're better, we need to get some fresh air in those lungs." She finished braiding his hair into neat rows, adding small blue beads that caught the morning light. "Plus, Mommy needs to see some sunshine before she goes crazy." Their apartment was small but filled with life. Colorful Jamaican artwork hung on the walls alongside Malik's crayon drawings. The kitchen smelled like the ginger tea Destiny's grandmother had taught her to make, and reggae music played softly from an old radio on the counter. Destiny worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat, mornings at a daycare center in Roxbury and evenings cleaning offices downtown. Today was her day off, and she planned to spend every minute with her son. They'd take the Orange Line to Forest Hills, then catch the bus to Franklin Park. It was their special place, where Malik could run free and Destiny could remember what her grandmother Nana Pearl used to tell her. "Child, healing happens best under an open sky." "Mommy, tell me about Nana Pearl again," Malik said as Destiny packed snacks in her worn canvas bag. "What you want to know, baby?" "About how she helped the sad kids." Destiny smiled, braiding her own thick black hair into a single plait down her back. Nana Pearl lived in Kingston, back in Jamaica. She had a gift for helping children who'd forgotten how to be happy. She'd tell them stories about birds and butterflies, sing old songs that her mama taught her. She used to say that words have power, but sometimes they need music to wake them up. "Did she help you when you were sad?" Destiny paused, remembering those dark months after Malik's father had left them, when she'd taken Malik to live with her grandmother for a summer. Nana Pearl had indeed worked her magic, helping Destiny find her strength again through traditional Jamaican stories and the healing power of community. "Yes, baby." She helped Mommy remember that even when things look broken, they can be fixed with enough love and patience. They bundled up in warm coats and scarves, Destiny's bright red winter coat a splash of color against the gray February morning. As they walked to the train station, Malik chattered about everything he saw: the ice crystals on car windows, the way their breath made clouds, the birds that somehow found food even in winter. At the Wells Mansion in Beacon Hill, Harrison found Chloe in the sunroom, sitting in her favorite spot by the large windows that overlooked the garden. At 6 years old, she was delicate like her mother had been, with soft blonde curls that caught the light and blue eyes that seemed to hold all the sadness in the world. She wore a pink sweater with small flowers on it and white leggings, looking like a porcelain doll that might break if held too tightly. "Good morning, Princess," Harrison said softly, kneeling beside her chair. Chloe looked at him and smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. She couldn't speak, but she could still communicate volumes with those expressive blue eyes. She pointed to the window where snow had begun to fall. "You want to go outside?" Harrison asked. "It's pretty cold today." Chloe nodded enthusiastically and ran to get her winter coat, a bright blue puffer jacket that made her look like a tiny marshmallow. She came back carrying her favorite stuffed animal, a small brown bear named Coco that had been a gift from her mother. "Where should we go, sweetheart?" Chloe pointed toward the door, then made a motion with her hands that Harrison had learned meant play. "The playground? You want to go to a playground?" She nodded so hard her curls bounced, the first real enthusiasm she'd shown in weeks. Dr. Peterson's words echoed in Harrison's mind. Sometimes peer interaction can accomplish what adults cannot. Maybe it was time to try something different. "All right, Princess. Let's go find you a playground." As they prepared to leave, neither Harrison nor Destiny knew their paths were about to cross in a way that would change everything. Sometimes the most profound moments begin with the simplest decisions. A father choosing hope over fear, a mother choosing adventure over safety, and a child's heart somehow knowing exactly where it needs to go. 20 minutes later, Harrison's black Tesla Model S pulled into the Franklin Park parking lot, the heated seats a stark contrast to the February chill outside. Chloe pressed her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass as she watched other children bundling up near the playground entrance. For the first time in months, her eyes held genuine curiosity instead of vacant sadness. "Remember what we talked about, Princess," Harrison said gently, unbuckling his seatbelt. "If you want to leave at any time, just tug on my coat, okay?" Chloe nodded and clutched Coco tighter to her chest. Harrison helped her out of the car, and they walked hand in hand toward the playground area. The park was surprisingly busy for such a cold day. Parents pushed bundled toddlers on swings while older children built snow forts near the climbing structures. Harrison chose a bench with a clear view of everything, close enough to intervene if needed, but far enough to let Chloe observe at her own pace. She sat beside him, Coco in her lap, watching the other children with the intensity of a scientist studying a foreign species. At the same time, Destiny and Malik emerged from the Forest Hills tea station, their cheeks already pink from the cold walk. Malik bounced with excitement as they approached the park gates. "Mommy, look how much snow! Can we build a snowman?" "We sure can, baby. But first, let's see what's happening at the playground." Destiny's practiced. I swept the area, noting which parents looked friendly, which children might welcome a new playmate, and which areas seemed safest. That's when she spotted them, a well-dressed man in an expensive charcoal coat sitting rigid on a bench, and beside him, a little girl who looked like she was watching the world from behind invisible glass. Something about the child tugged at Destiny's heart. She recognized that look. It was the same expression she'd seen on children back in Kingston when Nana Pearl would take her along to help families dealing with trauma. The girl wasn't just shy, she was lost somewhere inside herself. "Malik, you see that little girl over there? The one with the pretty blonde curls." Malik followed his mother's gaze. "She looks sad, Mommy." "She does. Maybe she needs a friend." Destiny had learned from her grandmother that healing often began with the simplest gestures. She guided Malik toward the sandbox area, strategically close to where Harrison and Chloe sat. Malik immediately began building elaborate sand castles despite the cold, his natural exuberance infectious. After a few minutes, Chloe slid off the bench and moved closer to watch. Harrison tensed, ready to intervene, but something made him pause. His daughter showed more interest in this activity than she had in anything for months. "Hi there, beautiful," Malik called out to Chloe with the fearless friendliness only 5-year-olds possessed. "You want to help me make a castle? I'm making it big enough for a princess." Chloe looked back at her father, who nodded encouragingly. She approached slowly and knelt beside Malik, Coco still tucked under her arm. Destiny watched the interaction carefully. She noticed how the little girl communicated entirely through gestures and expressions, how her father watched her with a mixture of hope and terror, and how both of them carried themselves like people balancing on a tightrope. "Your daughter's beautiful," Destiny said, approaching Harrison with a warm smile. "She and my son seem to be hitting it off." Harrison looked up, and for a moment, he forgot how to breathe. This woman's smile was like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. Her amber eyes held a warmth he hadn't experienced since Rachel died. "Thank you. She doesn't usually interact with other children." His voice carried a weight that made Destiny's heart ache. "Sometimes it takes the right friend at the right moment," Destiny said, settling on the bench beside him. She kept her tone light, but her eyes stayed on Chloe. "I'm Destiny, by the way. That's my son Malik building what he calls the greatest sandcastle in the history of castles." "Harrison. And that's Chloe." He paused, then added quietly, "She hasn't spoken in 8 months." Destiny's grandmother had taught her that some information came wrapped in pain, and it should be received with honor. She didn't gasp or offer empty platitudes. Instead, she simply nodded and said, "Children speak in many ways. Words are just one of them." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching their children. Malik had given Chloe a small plastic shovel and was showing her how to pack snow into the sand molds. Chloe followed his instructions precisely, her movements careful and deliberate. "You know," Destiny said softly, My grandmother used to tell me a story about a little yellow bird who lived in the mountains of Jamaica. This bird had the most beautiful song in the whole world, but one day, something frightened her so badly that she forgot how to sing. Harrison glanced at her curiously. Chloe, though still playing with Malik, had gone very still, clearly listening. Destiny continued, her voice taking on the rhythmic cadence of a born storyteller. The bird tried everything to remember her song. She listened to other birds, she opened her beak wide, she even flew to the highest mountain peak. But nothing worked. She remained silent for many months, growing sadder and sadder. Chloe had stopped playing entirely now and was looking directly at Destiny. Malik noticed and sat down beside her, sensing something important was happening. Then one day, Destiny continued, the little bird met a friendly parrot who didn't try to make her sing. Instead, the parrot just sat with her and told her stories about all the wonderful places he'd seen. The parrot's voice was kind and warm, and slowly, the little bird began to remember what it felt like to want to make beautiful sounds. Destiny's voice grew softer, more musical. The parrot told the bird that songs don't disappear, they just hide sometimes when we're scared. And you know what the little bird discovered? Chloe leaned forward slightly, her blue eyes fixed on Destiny's face. She discovered that her song was still there, waiting inside her heart. It just needed someone patient and kind to help her remember how to let it out. Destiny smiled at Chloe. And when she finally sang again, it was the most beautiful song anyone had ever heard, because it came from a place of healing, not just happiness. The playground seemed to hold its breath. Harrison felt his heart hammering against his ribs as he watched his daughter process the story. Chloe looked down at Coco, then at Malik, then back at Destiny. And then, in a voice so soft it was barely a whisper, she said, "Bird." Harrison's world stopped spinning. The word hung in the cold February air like a miracle made manifest. His hands began to shake, and he had to grip the bench to keep from falling forward. "Yes, baby girl," Destiny said gently. Her own eyes filling with tears, she quickly blinked away. "A little yellow bird, just like in the story." Chloe looked at her father, seeing the tears streaming down his face, and something inside her seemed to unlock just a fraction more. "Daddy," she whispered, the word rusty from disuse but clear as crystal. Harrison couldn't speak. He reached for his daughter and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she squeaked. When he looked up at Destiny through his tears, she was smiling with a joy so pure it took his breath away. "How?" he managed to ask. "My grandmother always said that healing speaks to healing," Destiny replied softly. "Sometimes a heart recognizes what it needs before the mind does." Malik, who had been watching this interaction with wide eyes, suddenly threw his arms around both Chloe and his mother. "Group hug," he announced, making Chloe giggle. Actually giggle. The sound was like church bells ringing on Christmas morning. Harrison looked at this woman who had just given him back his daughter's voice with nothing but a story and wondered if he was dreaming. "Thank you," he whispered, the words completely inadequate for what he was feeling. Destiny reached over and squeezed his hand briefly. "Thank your daughter. She's braver than she knows." As snow began to fall more heavily around them, creating a perfect winter wonderland, none of them wanted this moment to end. Something magical had happened here, something that would change all their lives forever. Harrison's hands trembled as he held Chloe, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. 8 months of the best doctor's money could buy, countless therapy sessions, experimental treatments that cost more than most people's annual salaries, and a complete stranger had accomplished what none of them could with a simple story about a bird. It felt impossible. It felt too good to be true. And Harrison Wells had learned the hard way that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. "Daddy, can we play more?" Chloe's voice was still soft, tentative, but it was there. Real. His daughter was speaking. "Of course, princess. Whatever you want." He set her down gently, watching as she immediately returned to Malik's side. The two children resumed their castle building, Chloe now humming softly under her breath. Harrison stood abruptly, running his hands through his sandy hair. The businessman in him, the part that had built an empire through careful analysis and calculated risks, was screaming warnings. This was too random, too convenient. People didn't just heal from trauma because a stranger told them a fairy tale. "Are you all right?" Destiny asked, studying his face with those perceptive amber eyes. "I need to understand what just happened," Harrison said, his voice tight with control. "My daughter has been seeing Dr. Peterson, one of Boston's top pediatric trauma specialists. She's had cognitive behavioral therapy, play therapy, art therapy. We've tried everything. And now she spoke," Destiny said simply. "Yes, but how? Why now? Why you?" The questions tumbled out faster than he could organize them. "I don't understand the mechanism. What technique did you use? Is this some kind of alternative therapy method?" Destiny tilted her head, recognizing the tone. She'd heard it before from well-meaning professionals who wanted to categorize and systematize everything her grandmother had taught her. "Mr. Wells." "Harrison. Please." "Harrison, sometimes healing doesn't come with a manual. My grandmother used to say that the heart has its own wisdom, its own timing." "Your grandmother." Harrison latched onto that detail like a lifeline. "Is she a licensed therapist? Does she have credentials in childhood trauma?" A small smile played at the corners of Destiny's mouth. "Nana Pearl passed away 3 years ago. She was a healer in Kingston, Jamaica. No degrees on her wall, but she helped more children than I can count." Harrison felt his chest tighten. No credentials. No scientific backing. Just folk medicine and superstition. The rational part of his mind began building walls against the hope that had bloomed so suddenly in his heart. "Look, I'm grateful, truly grateful for what just happened. But I can't base my daughter's treatment on." He paused, searching for a diplomatic way to phrase his doubts. "On what? On stories? On the wisdom of an old Jamaican woman?" Destiny's voice remained calm, but Harrison caught the slight edge to it. "On unproven methods," he finished. "Chloe's trauma is severe. She watched her mother die in a car accident. She needs professional help, evidence-based treatment." "And how's that been working for you?" Destiny asked quietly. The question hit like a physical blow. Harrison's jaw clenched. "The process takes time. 8 months isn't time enough to say one word." "Trauma doesn't follow a schedule," Harrison snapped, then immediately felt ashamed of his tone. This woman had just helped his daughter speak, and he was arguing with her like she was opposing counsel. Destiny watched him struggle, her expression softening. She recognized the fear beneath his aggression. "You're scared," she said gently. "I'm not scared. I'm being realistic. You're scared that this might not be real, that it might not last, that hoping might hurt more than not hoping at all." Harrison stared at her, caught off guard by how easily she'd read him. "I just need to understand the science behind what happened." "Some things don't have science, Harrison. Some things just have love." Before he could respond, Chloe came running over, her cheeks pink with cold and excitement. "Daddy, look." She held up a small snow angel that Malik had helped her make. "Pretty." "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Harrison said, his voice thick with emotion. She had spoken again. Whatever was happening, whether he understood it or not, his daughter was speaking. "Can Malik and his mama come have hot chocolate with us?" Chloe asked, looking between Harrison and Destiny with hopeful eyes. Harrison felt trapped. Every instinct told him to be cautious, to take Chloe home, to call Dr. Peterson and analyze what had happened. But how could he say no to the first request his daughter had made in 8 months? "That's very kind, Princess, but I'm sure Destiny and Malik have their own plans." "Actually," Destiny interjected, "hot chocolate sounds wonderful. There's a little cafe right here in the park." "My treat." "No, absolutely not," Harrison said quickly. "If we're going, I'll pay." Why? Because you have more money. Destiny's tone was light, but Harrison caught the challenge beneath it. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Harrison realized he was handling this badly. His usual methods of control and analysis weren't working here. This woman operated by different rules, and he felt completely out of his depth. I want to do something nice for you. After what you did for Chloe. What I did was tell a story. That's not something you pay for. That's something you share. Malik bounced over to them, snow still clinging to his jacket. Mama, can we go get hot chocolate? Chloe says they have marshmallows. Marshmallows, Chloe echoed, clapping her hands together. Big white ones. The pure joy on his daughter's face made Harrison's chest ache. When was the last time she'd been excited about anything? When was the last time she'd expressed a want, a preference, a desire? All right, he said, surprising himself. Hot chocolate it is. The cafe inside the park's visitor center was small and warm, with mismatched chairs and tables that had seen better days. Harrison felt overdressed in his expensive coat and Italian leather shoes, but Chloe and Malik claimed a table by the window immediately, chattering about their snow castles. 2 hot chocolates with extra marshmallows, the teenage barista called out, and 2 coffees. Harrison reached for his wallet, but Destiny was already handing over a $20 bill. I said it was my treat. Please, let me. Harrison. Her voice was firm but kind. This isn't about money. This is about 2 children who want hot chocolate together. Let it be simple. As they sat down, Harrison watched his daughter animated in a way he hadn't seen since before the accident. She was telling Malik about Coco, about how the bear liked to sleep in her bed and eat pretend honey. Normal 6-year-old conversation that 8 months ago he'd taken for granted. She's a special little girl, Destiny said softly, following his gaze. She is. She was always quiet, even before, but she used to talk constantly. About everything. Her favorite color, what she wanted for lunch, stories about her stuffed animals. His voice caught. I'd give anything to have those conversations back. Maybe you will. You think this will continue? The speaking. Destiny was quiet for a moment, watching Chloe blow on her hot chocolate to cool it down. I think she's ready to try. But healing isn't a straight line. There might be setbacks. What do I do if she stops talking again? You love her. You be patient. You remember that she's still in there, even when the words won't come out. Harrison studied this woman who seemed to understand his daughter better after one meeting than he did after 6 years of being her father. How do you know so much about childhood trauma? Experience, Destiny said simply. My own and others. My grandmother taught me that hurt children need the same thing hurt adults need. Someone who sees them, really sees them, and doesn't try to fix them. Just loves them where they are. And you think that's what Chloe needs? I think Chloe needs her daddy to stop being so afraid of losing her that he forgets to enjoy having her. The words hit harder than any business rival's attack ever had. Harrison realized he'd been so focused on getting his daughter back that he'd stopped seeing the daughter he still had. I don't know how to do this, he admitted quietly. I don't know how to help her without understanding why it works. Some things you don't figure out, Harrison. Some things you just trust. As if sensing the weight of the conversation, Chloe looked over at them. Daddy, are you sad? No, princess. Daddy's just thinking. About Mama? The question caught him off guard. Chloe rarely mentioned Rachel anymore. Sometimes. Do you think about Mama? Chloe nodded solemnly. She's in heaven with the birds. Destiny's eyes met Harrison's across the table, and he saw understanding there. His daughter was processing her mother's death through the story Destiny had told. The little yellow bird who lost her song wasn't just a character in a tale. It was Chloe herself. And for the first time in 8 months, Harrison allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, His little bird might learn to sing again. As they finished their hot chocolate, Harrison checked his phone and frowned at the weather alert flashing across the screen. Severe winter storm warning. Heavy snow expected through evening hours. Avoid unnecessary travel. Outside the cafe windows, what had been gentle flurries an hour ago was now a legitimate blizzard. The wind howled around the building, and snow was falling so heavily that the playground equipment had become barely visible white shapes in the distance. "Oh no," Destiny murmured, pulling out her own phone. "The T is suspended due to weather conditions. All Orange Line service stopped until further notice." Harrison felt a familiar knot of anxiety form in his stomach. He'd lived through Boston winters his entire life, but since Rachel's accident, unexpected weather changes triggered a panic response he couldn't control. His wife had died on a night when weather conditions deteriorated faster than anyone predicted. "Daddy, why is it so windy?" Chloe asked, pressing her face to the window. The glass fogged with her breath as she watched snow swirl in hypnotic patterns. "It's just a storm, Princess. We'll wait until it calms down, then go home." But even as he said it, Harrison knew this wasn't a quick passing squall. The Weather Service had been tracking this system for days, and he'd ignored it in his eagerness to get Chloe to the playground. Now they were trapped 20 minutes from home with no safe way to travel. "Mama, are we stuck?" Malik asked, reading the concern on the adults' faces despite their attempts to stay calm. "Just for a little while, baby. Think of it as an adventure," Destiny said, though Harrison noticed the slight strain in her voice. She was probably calculating daycare pickup times and work schedules, all the practical concerns of a single mother whose life ran on tight timing. The cafe manager, a heavy-set man in his 50s with kind eyes, approached their table. "Folks, I hate to tell you this, but we're closing early due to the storm. Park Services says the roads are getting dangerous, and most of our staff needs to get home." Harrison's chest tightened. "When will you reopen?" "Probably not until tomorrow morning, weather permitting. But the visitor center will stay open as an emergency shelter. We've got heat, restrooms, and some vending machines. Happens a few times every winter." Destiny and Harrison exchanged glances. Neither had planned for an extended stay at the park, and the thought of spending hours trapped together in a strange building with their children felt overwhelming for entirely different reasons. "Daddy, can we build a fort?" Chloe asked, oblivious to the adult tension. "Like camping." "That's a great idea, sweetheart," Harrison said, forcing enthusiasm into his voice. "We'll make it an adventure." The visitor center's main room was larger than the cafe, with educational displays about local wildlife and Boston's park system lining the walls. Comfortable seating areas were scattered around, designed for families to rest during long park visits. Large windows offered a panoramic view of the storm outside, which was both beautiful and slightly terrifying in its intensity. 3 other families had been caught by the weather, along with an elderly couple who'd been visiting the park's historical sites. The atmosphere was surprisingly communal, with parents organizing activities to keep the children occupied and adults sharing snacks they'd brought for their outings. Harrison called his driver, but the man confirmed what Harrison already knew. "Sorry, Mr. Wells. Police have advised all non-emergency vehicles to stay off the roads. Even the Tesla's all-wheel drive won't help in this wind." Chloe seemed completely unbothered by their situation. She'd claimed a corner near the windows where she and Malik were building an elaborate fort using couch cushions and their winter coats. Their laughter echoed through the space, a bright counterpoint to the storm's fury outside. "You know," Destiny said, settling beside Harrison on a nearby bench, "when I was little in Jamaica, we used to get stuck inside during hurricane season. My grandmother would say it was the universe's way of forcing people to slow down and really see each other." "This feels different from a planned sleepover," Harrison admitted, watching their children. "I keep thinking about all the things I should be doing, calls I should be making." "Like what?" "Conference calls with Tokyo, contract reviews, board meeting prep." Even as he listed them, Harrison realized how hollow they sounded compared to watching his daughter laugh with genuine joy. And if you were home right now, doing those things, what would Chloe be doing? Harrison considered the question honestly. Probably sitting in her room, coloring or playing quietly with her toys. Mrs. Patterson would make dinner, give her a bath, read her a story. Alone. Well, I'd see her before bedtime. We always have bedtime stories. Destiny nodded without judgment, but Harrison felt the weight of what he'd just admitted. His daughter's days were structured and safe but isolated. When was the last time she'd laughed with another child? When was the last time she'd had an unplanned adventure? "Mama," Malik called from their fort, "can you tell the bird story again? Chloe wants to hear it." "Of course, baby." As Destiny walked over to the children, Harrison watched her natural ease with them. She settled cross-legged on the floor, immediately at their level, and began the story again. But this time, she added details about the bird's friends in the forest, about how other animals helped her remember that she wasn't alone. Chloe hung on every word, occasionally whispering questions or comments. "Did the bird miss her mama?" she asked at one point. "Every single day," Destiny answered gently. But she learned that missing someone you love doesn't mean you stop loving them. It just means they were very special. Harrison felt his throat tighten. Chloe rarely talked about missing Rachel, rarely acknowledged that grief directly. But here she was, processing those feelings through this story in a way that felt safe and manageable. "Tell the part about the bird learning to sing again," Chloe requested. Well, the little bird discovered that her song had changed. It wasn't exactly the same as before, because she had experienced sadness and loss. But it was still beautiful, maybe even more beautiful, because it carried all of her experiences, both happy and sad. "Like how Daddy's voice sounds different when he misses Mama?" Chloe asked innocently. Harrison's breath caught. He hadn't realized his daughter had noticed those moments when grief changed his voice, made it rougher around the edges. How much did she understand about his own healing process? "Exactly like that," Destiny said softly. "Sometimes the most beautiful songs come from hearts that have known sadness." By mid-afternoon, the storm showed no signs of stopping. The children had exhausted the fort-building possibilities and were now engaged in an elaborate game that seemed to involve Coco going on adventures with Malik's small collection of toy cars. Harrison found himself in an extended conversation with Destiny about everything and nothing. She told him about her work at the daycare, about how she'd learned to read children's emotional needs before they could express them verbally. He found himself sharing stories about building his company, about the early days when he and Rachel had worked 18-hour days, dreaming of the life they'd create together. "She sounds like she was wonderful," Destiny said when he finished describing Rachel's talent for making everyone around her feel valued and heard. "She was. She would have loved this, actually. Being trapped somewhere unexpected, making the best of it. She always said the best adventures were the unplanned ones." "And what do you think she'd say about today?" Harrison looked over at Chloe, who was now attempting to teach Malik a clapping game, her voice clear and confident as she explained the rules. "She'd say I need to stop overthinking everything and just be grateful that our daughter is talking again." Smart woman. The smartest. She always said I had a tendency to analyze the magic out of everything beautiful. Destiny laughed, a warm sound that filled the space. "And here you are, trying to understand the scientific basis for a folk story healing your daughter." Guilty as charged. "You know what I think." "What?" "I think sometimes life puts us exactly where we need to be, with exactly the people we need to meet, at exactly the right time. And the only choice we have is whether to fight it or trust it." Harrison looked around the room, taking in the scene. His daughter was more animated than he'd seen her in months, playing with a friend she'd met by chance. He was having the most honest conversation he'd had with another adult since Rachel died. And despite being trapped in an unexpected situation, he felt more present, more alive than he had in ages. "Maybe you're right," he said quietly. "Daddy," Chloe called out. Malik says his mama makes the best curry chicken in Boston. Can we try some sometime? Harrison met Destiny's eyes across the room, seeing his own surprise reflected there. His daughter wasn't just speaking, she was making social plans, expressing preferences, engaging with the future in a way she hadn't since the accident. I think that sounds like a wonderful idea, Princess. As the storm continued to rage outside, trapping them together in this unexpected sanctuary, Harrison began to realize that sometimes the best things in life came not from careful planning but from surrendering to the moment and trusting that everything would work out exactly as it should. As evening shadows began to deepen outside the visitor center, the storm showed no signs of letting up. The park staff had distributed blankets and turned on additional heating, transforming the space into a cozy refuge. Most of the other families had settled into quiet activities, while Chloe and Malik had fallen asleep in their makeshift fort, exhausted from hours of play. Harrison sat beside Destiny on one of the benches, both of them watching their sleeping children. The forced intimacy of the situation had gradually worn down his usual barriers, and he found himself more relaxed than he'd been in months. "Can I ask you something?" Destiny said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper to avoid waking the children. "Of course." When Chloe mentioned that your voice sounds different when you miss her mama, what did she mean? Harrison was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the swirling snow. Rachel died 8 months ago, July 15th. Chloe was in the car with her. Oh, Harrison. Destiny's voice carried a weight of understanding that told him she knew real loss. I was supposed to pick Chloe up from summer camp that day. We'd planned it that way because I had a late meeting. But the meeting got moved up, and instead of calling Rachel to tell her I could pick up Chloe after all, I just stayed at the office. I figured she was already on her way. His hands clenched into fists on his lap. There was a storm that night too. Not like this, but heavy rain, poor visibility. Rachel was driving on Route 128 when a drunk driver ran a red light. Destiny reached over and placed her hand gently over his clenched fist. The simple gesture of comfort nearly undid him. Chloe was in her car seat in the back. She saw everything. The impact, the ambulance, watching them try to save her mother in the hospital. Harrison's voice broke slightly. The doctors said Rachel died instantly, but Chloe didn't understand that. She kept asking why Mama wouldn't wake up, why she wouldn't talk to her. That's when she stopped speaking. Completely. She hasn't said a word since the funeral. Until today. He looked at Destiny with wonder still fresh in his eyes. How did you know? How did you know exactly what she needed to hear? Destiny was quiet for a moment, her thumb tracing gentle circles on the back of his hand. Because I know what it's like to lose your voice. Harrison turned to study her face, seeing a sadness there he hadn't noticed before. Not literally, she continued. But I know what it's like to have the words trapped inside you because the world suddenly doesn't make sense anymore. What happened? Destiny glanced over at Malik, sleeping peacefully with one arm around Chloe's stuffed bear. Malik's father left us when Malik was 3. Just vanished one day. No explanation, no goodbye. Left a note saying he wasn't ready to be a father and couldn't handle the responsibility. I'm sorry. I was devastated. Not just because he left, but because I'd been so blind to how unhappy he was. I'd thought we were building a life together, but apparently I was building it alone. She smiled sadly. For months, I could barely speak above a whisper. I'd lost confidence in my own voice, in my ability to read people, to trust my instincts. How did you get through it? My grandmother. Nana Pearl had me and Malik come stay with her in Kingston for the summer. She said I needed to remember where I came from, who I was before I became half of a couple. Destiny's voice took on the same musical quality it had when she told stories to the children. Nana Pearl had this way of healing people without them even realizing they were being healed. She'd tell stories, sing old songs, cook traditional foods. But really, she was teaching us that we were whole people, not broken pieces. Is that where you learned about childhood trauma? Partly. But mostly I learned from watching her work with the children in our community. Kingston has a lot of kids who've seen violence, poverty, loss. The government programs and social workers meant well, but they couldn't reach some of these children. Nana Pearl could. Harrison leaned forward, genuinely curious. How? She understood that trauma lives in the body, not just the mind. Western therapy talks to the brain, but Nana Pearl worked with the whole person. Stories, music, movement, community. She'd say that healing happens when the heart feels safe enough to remember joy. The bird story. That was hers originally. She used it for children who'd lost their voices in different ways. Some had been through abuse, others had witnessed violence, some had just experienced loss like Chloe. But the story worked because it gave them permission to be broken for a while, and then showed them a path back to wholeness. Harrison absorbed this, understanding dawning in his expression. That's why it worked with Chloe. It wasn't just a story. It was, what, therapy? It was truth wrapped in metaphor. Chloe recognized herself in that little bird. She knew, on some level, that if the bird could find her song again, maybe she could too. But you're not a trained therapist. Destiny smiled. Neither was Nana Pearl. But she understood something that a lot of trained professionals miss. Healing isn't always about fixing what's broken. Sometimes it's about remembering what was never broken in the first place. Which is what? The capacity to love and be loved. The ability to connect with others. The strength that comes from knowing you're not alone in your pain. Harrison thought about the months since Rachel's death, about how he'd isolated himself and Chloe in their grief, surrounding them with professionals and treatments but cutting them off from the simple human connections that might have helped them both heal faster. I think I've been doing everything wrong, he said quietly. Not wrong. Just incomplete. You've been trying to fix Chloe's trauma, but trauma isn't something you fix. It's something you learn to carry with love and support. How do you know so much about this? Because I had to learn it for myself. After Malik's father left, I was angry for a long time. Angry at him, angry at myself, angry at the world. Nana Pearl used to say that anger is just love with nowhere to go. She taught me how to transform that anger into something useful. Like helping other people's children? Like recognizing when a little girl needs to hear that it's okay to be silent for a while, and that speaking again doesn't mean forgetting the person who can't speak back. The truth of her words hit Harrison like a physical blow. He'd been so focused on getting Chloe to talk that he'd never considered she might be staying silent as a way of staying connected to her mother. She thinks if she starts talking again, she's leaving Rachel behind. Maybe. Or maybe she's afraid that if she talks about missing her mama, it will make you sadder than you already are. Harrison looked over at his sleeping daughter, seeing her with new eyes. Had she been protecting him all this time? Had his own grief been so overwhelming that she'd felt responsible for managing his emotions along with her own? God, I've been so selfish. You've been grieving. There's a difference. But she's been grieving too, and I made her do it alone. You made sure she had professional help. But not love. Not community. Not this. He gestured around the room, at the other families who'd shared snacks and stories throughout the day, at Malik sleeping peacefully beside Chloe like they'd been friends forever. Well, now you know better. And knowing better means you can do better. What if I can't? What if I don't know how to be the father she needs? Destiny turned to face him fully, her amber eyes serious. Harrison, do you love your daughter? More than my own life. Then you already know how to be the father she needs. Everything else is just details. Outside, the storm was finally beginning to calm. The wind had died down, and the snow was falling in gentle flakes instead of the violent swirls of earlier. But inside the visitor center, Harrison felt like his own internal storm was just beginning to settle. For the first time since Rachel's death, He could see a path forward that didn't involve trying to fix everything or control every outcome. It involved trust, community, and the radical act of allowing other people to help carry the weight of their healing. "Destiny," he said quietly. "Yes. Would you consider helping us? Not as a therapist or a professional, but as a friend. I think Chloe needs what you have to offer, and honestly, I think I do too." Destiny smiled, the expression lighting up her entire face. "I'd be honored." As they sat together in the quiet of the evening, watching their children sleep peacefully side by side, Harrison allowed himself to believe that maybe the worst of their darkness was behind them, and that healing really could happen one story, one moment, one connection at a time. 3 weeks had passed since that snowy February day at Franklin Park, and Harrison's life had transformed in ways he never could have imagined. What started as a chance encounter had evolved into a routine that both he and Chloe looked forward to with genuine excitement. Every Tuesday and Thursday after school, Harrison would pick up Chloe from her private academy in Back Bay and drive to Franklin Park. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Destiny would meet them there with Malik after finishing her morning shift at Little Sprouts Daycare in Roxbury. What had begun as playground meetings had expanded into shared dinners, weekend adventures, and phone calls that stretched long into the evening after the children were asleep. On this particular Thursday in early March, the weather had finally begun to hint at spring. The snow was melting, revealing patches of green grass beneath, and the playground equipment was dry enough for the children to use without bundling up in heavy winter coats. "Daddy, watch me go down the big slide," Chloe called out, her voice clear and confident. She wore a bright yellow sweater that brought out the gold flecks in her blue eyes, and her blonde curls bounced as she climbed the playground structure with Malik close behind. "I'm watching, princess," Harrison called back, his heart swelling with pride. Not just because she was speaking, but because she was playing with the fearless abandon of a normal 6-year-old. The transformation was remarkable. "She's doing so well," Destiny said, settling beside him on their usual bench. She wore a turquoise blouse that complemented her warm skin tone and made her amber eyes sparkle in the afternoon sunlight. "I can barely remember what it was like when she didn't talk," Harrison admitted. "It's only been 3 weeks, but it feels like she's been chattering non-stop for months." Children are resilient that way. Once they feel safe enough to heal, they heal quickly. "Is that what happened?" "She felt safe." Destiny smiled, watching as Chloe helped Malik navigate a particularly challenging climbing section. "I think she felt seen. There's a difference between being safe and feeling safe. You'd created a safe environment for her, but she needed to feel emotionally safe to express herself. And you gave her that. We gave her that. Community healing, remember? It wasn't just me." Harrison had come to understand this concept over the past weeks. Destiny's approach to helping Chloe wasn't about individual sessions or one-on-one therapy. It was about creating a chosen family, a support network where healing happened naturally through play, shared meals, and genuine connection. "Mama, can we show Mr. Harrison how we made the friendship bracelets?" Malik asked, running over with Chloe in tow. "Of course, baby." The children settled on the grass at their feet, pulling colorful string and beads from Chloe's small backpack. Over the past weeks, Destiny had been teaching both children traditional Jamaican crafts alongside American games and activities. "See, Daddy, you take the blue string and wrap it around like this," Chloe explained seriously, her small fingers working with surprising dexterity. "Auntie D says blue is for peace and yellow is for happiness." Harrison's breath caught slightly. Chloe had started calling Destiny Auntie D the week before, a term of endearment that spoke to how deeply she'd bonded with this woman who'd entered their lives so unexpectedly. "And when you wear the bracelet," Malik added, "you remember that someone loves you even when they're not with you." "That's beautiful," Harrison said, genuinely moved by the concept. "Where did you learn that?" "From my Nana Pearl," Destiny explained. "She used to make these with all the children in our neighborhood. Said it was a way of keeping the community connected even when people were apart." As the children worked on their bracelets, chattering about colors and patterns, Harrison found himself studying Destiny's profile. Over the past weeks, he discovered depths to her that went far beyond her initial warmth and intuitive understanding of children. She was incredibly intelligent, with insights about human behavior that rivaled any psychology textbook he'd ever read. She was also funny, with a quick wit that could make him laugh even on his most stressed days. And she was beautiful in a way that wasn't just physical, though he certainly wasn't immune to the graceful way she moved or how her eyes lit up when she smiled. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, catching him staring. "Just this. All of this." He gestured at their children, at the park, at the easy intimacy of their afternoon routine. 3 weeks ago, I thought my life was completely mapped out. Work, therapy appointments, bedtime stories. Rinse and repeat until somehow Chloe got better. And now I look forward to Tuesdays and Thursdays more than I've looked forward to anything in months. I find myself checking my phone to see if you've texted. Chloe asks about you and Malik constantly. He paused, then added quietly, "I don't remember the last time life felt this alive." Destiny's expression softened. "It's called community, Harrison. It's called belonging. Is that what this is? What do you think it is?" Before Harrison could answer, Chloe came over and placed a finished bracelet around his wrist. The colors were bright and cheerful, blue, yellow, and green woven together in an intricate pattern. "This one's for you, Daddy. The green is for healing." "Thank you, sweetheart. It's perfect." Malik presented a similar bracelet to his mother, beaming with pride. "And this one's for you, Mama. I put extra yellow in it because you make everything happy." "You two are going to make me cry," Destiny said, though she was laughing as she tied the bracelet around her wrist. "Auntie D, can we go get ice cream?" Chloe asked. "I want to try the mango flavor you told me about. If it's okay with your daddy." "Can we, Daddy? Please." Harrison checked his watch. Usually, Thursday afternoons meant returning home for dinner prepared by Mrs. Patterson, followed by a structured evening of homework, bath time, and reading. But looking at his daughter's hopeful face, at Malik bouncing with anticipation, at Destiny's warm smile, he realized he didn't want this afternoon to end. Ice cream sounds perfect. The small Jamaican restaurant Destiny had discovered in Jamaica Plain became their next stop. The owner, a woman named Miss Beverly with steel-gray hair and knowing eyes, greeted Destiny like family and immediately doted on the children. "You bring your friend and his daughter," Miss Beverly exclaimed, her accent thick with Caribbean warmth. "Look how beautiful these children are together." As they settled into a corner booth, sharing flavors of ice cream Harrison had never heard of before, he watched Chloe try to pronounce soursop, while Malik giggled at her attempts. The sound of their laughter filled something inside him that he hadn't realized was empty. "This place reminds me of the restaurants my grandmother used to take me to in Kingston," Destiny said, spooning up some coconut ice cream. "Same feeling of family, even with strangers." "It's wonderful. I can't believe I've lived in Boston my whole life and never knew this existed. Sometimes we live in bubbles without realizing it." Harrison knew she was right. His life had been circumscribed by work, expensive restaurants, exclusive social circles. He'd been giving Chloe a life of privilege, but not necessarily a life of richness. "Daddy," Chloe said suddenly, "can Auntie D and Malik come to our house for dinner this weekend? I want to show Malik my room and all my books." Harrison felt a flutter of nervousness. Having Destiny and Malik to his house felt like crossing a line somehow, making their connection more real, more serious. But looking at his daughter's eager face, he realized that ship had already sailed. "Of course, Princess. Would Saturday work?" he asked Destiny. "If you're sure. I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing. You're—" He searched for the right words. "You're part of our lives now. Both of you." Later that evening, after they dropped Destiny and Malik at the tea station and returned home to Beacon Hill, Harrison found himself in Chloe's room for their nightly story time. But instead of reaching for one of her usual books, She pulled out a small notebook. "What's that, sweetheart?" "I'm writing stories like Auntie Dee tells. About birds and families and friends." She opened the notebook to show him pages covered in careful 6-year-old handwriting and colorful drawings. "This is incredible, Chloe. When did you start writing these?" "After the park day when it snowed. I wanted to remember all the good things." Harrison's throat tightened as he read her stories. They were simple but profound, filled with themes of healing, friendship, and love. One story was about a little bird who found a new flock after losing her first one. Another was about a lonely man who learned to smile again when he met a kind woman and her son. "Princess, these stories are beautiful. You're becoming quite the writer. Auntie Dee says everyone has stories inside them. She's teaching me how to let mine out." As Harrison tucked his daughter into bed that night, he realized that Destiny hadn't just helped Chloe find her voice again. She'd helped her find her imagination, her creativity, her sense of wonder about the world. And perhaps most importantly, she'd helped her believe in the possibility of new love, new family, new beginnings. For the first time since Rachel's death, Harrison allowed himself to think about the future not as something to endure, but as something to anticipate with hope and excitement. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp March sunshine that promised spring was finally winning its battle against winter. Harrison had spent the previous evening preparing for Destiny and Malik's visit with an attention to detail that bordered on obsessive. He'd asked Mrs. Patterson to prepare a feast that included both traditional American comfort food and some Jamaican dishes he'd researched online. The house gleamed from top to bottom, and he'd even bought special juice boxes that he thought Malik might enjoy. Chloe had been awake since dawn, rearranging her room and practicing the songs that Destiny had taught her. She wore a bright green dress with small flowers on it and had insisted on wearing the friendship bracelet she'd made the day before. "Daddy, when will they be here?" she asked for the 10th time in an hour, bouncing on her toes by the front window of their Beacon Hill townhouse. "Any minute now, Princess. Remember, this is their first time seeing our home, so let's make them feel welcome." "Like a real family?" Chloe asked innocently. The question hit Harrison with unexpected force. Over the past month, that's exactly what they'd begun to feel like. A real family. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. At exactly noon, a black car pulled up outside. Harrison watched as Destiny emerged wearing a beautiful coral dress that brought out the warmth in her skin, while Malik bounced excitedly in khaki pants and a bright blue shirt. They looked perfect, radiating the same warmth and joy that had drawn Harrison to them from the very beginning. But as Harrison opened the front door to greet them, he noticed a second car pulling up behind theirs. His stomach dropped as he recognized the silver Mercedes and the stern figure emerging from it. His mother. Eleanor Wells stepped out of her car with the regal bearing of someone accustomed to commanding attention. At 72, she was still a formidable woman, her silver hair perfectly styled, her navy suit impeccable despite the long drive from her estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. Her sharp blue eyes, so similar to Harrison's and Chloe's, took in the scene with barely concealed disapproval. "Grandmother!" Chloe called out, running toward Eleanor with genuine delight. "Hello, darling," Eleanor said, embracing her granddaughter but keeping her gaze fixed on Destiny and Malik. "What a surprise to find you have guests." Harrison's chest tightened. He'd mentioned Destiny and Malik to his mother in passing during their weekly phone calls, but he deliberately kept the details vague. Eleanor had strong opinions about appropriate social circles, and Harrison had wanted to protect this new relationship from her judgment. "Mother, what a surprise. I wasn't expecting you." Clearly, Eleanor's tone could have frozen the Charles River. "I decided to drive up to see my granddaughter. I've been concerned about these new friendships you've been encouraging." Destiny, reading the tension immediately, stepped forward with grace and dignity. "Mrs. Wells, I'm Destiny Campbell, and this is my son Malik. It's lovely to meet you." Eleanor's smile was polite but cold as she shook Destiny's extended hand. "Ms. Campbell, and what is it that you do?" "I work at a daycare center in Roxbury, and I help children who've experienced trauma." I see. And you live in Dorchester. Harrison watched his mother's expression tighten, almost imperceptibly. In Eleanor's world, those details told her everything she thought she needed to know about Destiny's social status and worthiness to associate with her family. Grandmother, you have to meet Malik, Chloe said, oblivious to the adult tension. He's my best friend, and his mama tells the best stories in the whole world. Does she? Eleanor's voice carried a tone that suggested storytelling wasn't a particularly valuable skill. She helped me talk again, Chloe continued earnestly. When I was sad about Mama, Auntie D knew exactly what to say. Auntie D. The disapproval in Eleanor's voice was now unmistakable. Harrison stepped forward, trying to salvage the situation. Mother, why don't we go inside? Mrs. Patterson has prepared lunch. As they moved into the house, Harrison watched his mother take inventory of everything. Destiny's dress, which was beautiful but clearly not designer. Malik's animated chatter about the mansion they were visiting. The easy familiarity between Chloe and this family that Eleanor was meeting for the first time. Lunch was a disaster from the first course. Eleanor dominated the conversation with pointed questions about Destiny's background, education, and long-term plans. She asked about Malik's father with the kind of directness that bordered on rudeness, and made subtle comments about the importance of appropriate influences in children's lives. So, Ms. Campbell, Eleanor said as they finished the main course, what exactly is your professional training in childhood trauma? I learned from my grandmother, who was a traditional healer in Jamaica. She taught me that healing happens through community and cultural connection. How? Interesting. And this grandmother, she had medical credentials. She had wisdom and experience. I see. Eleanor's tone suggested she saw quite clearly and found it lacking. Harrison, might I speak with you privately for a moment? Harrison's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Of course. Chloe, why don't you show Malik your book collection? As the children disappeared upstairs, chattering excitedly, Harrison followed his mother into his study. Destiny remained in the dining room, her composure intact but her discomfort obvious. Harrison, what exactly do you think you're doing? Eleanor's voice was sharp with disapproval. I'm having lunch with friends. Friends? That woman has clearly targeted you because of your wealth. A single mother from Dorchester befriends a billionaire? Please don't be naive. Mother, it's not like that. Isn't it? Think about this objectively. Your daughter has a traumatic experience, and suddenly this woman appears with a magical solution? How convenient. How profitable for her. Harrison felt anger building in his chest. Destiny has never asked me for anything. Not once. She doesn't need to ask. The implication is clear. And now Chloe is calling her auntie and forming inappropriate attachments. This woman is inserting herself into our family for obvious reasons. What obvious reasons? Money. Harrison. Security. A better life for her son. She's using your daughter's trauma to manipulate you. That's not true. Then explain to me how a random encounter at a playground has led to this woman having such influence over your child that Chloe credits her with her recovery? Harrison struggled to find words that would make his mother understand what Destiny had brought to their lives. How could he explain the transformation in Chloe, the joy that had returned to their home, the way his own heart had begun to heal? Chloe is happy, Mother. She's speaking, she's laughing, she's herself again. And you think that's because of this woman? Harrison, you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on the best medical care money can buy. Chloe was going to recover with or without Ms. Campbell's folk remedies. You weren't there. You didn't see. I see a grieving man being taken advantage of by someone who recognized an opportunity. And I see my granddaughter forming an unhealthy attachment to someone who will inevitably disappoint her. Eleanor moved closer, her voice softening but losing none of its determination. Harrison, I understand you're lonely. Losing Rachel was devastating for all of us. But you cannot fill that void by bringing random people into Chloe's life. She needs stability, consistency, appropriate role models. Destiny is an appropriate role model. A single mother working 2 jobs to make ends meet? A woman with no education, no social standing, no understanding of Chloe's world? What kind of future are you offering your daughter if you continue down this path? What are you saying? I'm saying that if you cannot see clearly enough to protect my granddaughter's best interests, then perhaps other arrangements need to be made. The threat hit Harrison like a physical blow. You're talking about custody. I'm talking about doing what's best for Chloe. She's been through enough trauma. She doesn't need the additional confusion of having her father involved with someone completely inappropriate. Harrison stared at his mother, seeing the steel determination that had made her a force in Boston society for decades. Eleanor Wells didn't make idle threats. She had the resources, the connections, and the ruthless pragmatism to follow through on any legal action she deemed necessary. Mother, please. End this relationship. Harrison. Gently, kindly, but permanently. Focus on your daughter and your responsibilities. Find someone appropriate when you're ready, someone who can actually contribute to Chloe's future instead of limiting it. From upstairs, they could hear Chloe's laughter mixing with Malik's as Destiny read them a story. The sound that had brought Harrison such joy now felt like it was being torn away from him. I need to think about this. Don't think too long. I won't watch my granddaughter's future be compromised by your temporary emotional needs. When they returned to the dining room, Destiny took one look at Harrison's face and immediately began gathering her things. We should go, she said quietly. Malik, come on, baby. We need to head home. But Mama, Chloe was going to show me her garden. Another time, sweetheart. Chloe came running downstairs, her face falling when she saw the adults' expressions. Are you leaving already? You just got here. We had a lovely time, baby girl, Destiny said, hugging Chloe tightly. Thank you for sharing your beautiful home with us. When will I see you again? Destiny's eyes met Harrison's across the room, and he saw understanding there. She'd read the situation perfectly, recognizing that their relationship had just become a liability to the people she cared about. Soon, she said softly, though her voice carried no conviction. As Harrison watched Destiny and Malik leave, he felt like he was watching his heart walk out the door. Chloe stood beside him, confused and hurt by the abrupt ending to what should have been a perfect day. Daddy, why did Auntie Dee look sad? Harrison knelt down and pulled his daughter close, hating himself for what he was about to do. Sometimes, princess, things change. Sometimes people have to take a break from seeing each other. But why? Because grown-ups have to make difficult decisions sometimes. As Eleanor's car pulled away an hour later, Harrison was left alone with his daughter and the devastating realization that he was about to choose his family's approval over his own happiness and quite possibly Chloe's healing. The house felt empty and cold, as if all the warmth and life had walked out with Destiny and Malik. And for the first time since meeting them, Harrison wondered if his mother might be right. Maybe he had been thinking with his heart instead of his head. Maybe he had been putting his own needs ahead of Chloe's best interests. But as he watched his daughter stare out the window with tears in her eyes, waiting for friends who might never come back, he began to realize that the biggest mistake of his life might be the one he was about to make. 5 days had passed since that disastrous Saturday lunch, and Harrison's world had crumbled back into the gray silence he'd thought they'd left behind forever. Chloe had stopped speaking again, not completely, but her voice had become whisper-soft, tentative, as if she was afraid that talking too loudly might make more people disappear from her life. Wednesday evening found Harrison in his home office, staring at legal documents that Eleanor had delivered that morning. Custody modification papers. His mother wasn't bluffing. She'd retained the best family law firm in Boston and was prepared to argue that Harrison's judgment had been compromised by grief, making him unfit to make decisions in Chloe's best interest. The irony wasn't lost on him. In trying to protect his daughter from losing another important person in her life, He was risking losing her entirely. "Daddy!" Chloe's small voice came from the doorway. She stood there in her pink pajamas, clutching Coco to her chest, her blue eyes wide with a kind of sadness that broke his heart. "What is it, princess?" "I keep having the dream about the bird again." Harrison's chest tightened. The nightmares had returned along with Chloe's silence. In the dream, the little yellow bird from Destiny's story lost her song again and couldn't find anyone to help her remember it. "Come here, sweetheart." Chloe climbed into his lap, and Harrison wrapped his arms around her tiny frame. She felt so fragile, like a bird with broken wings who might never learn to fly again. "Daddy, did I do something wrong? Is that why Auntie Dee doesn't come to the park anymore?" The question hit him like a physical blow. For 5 days, he'd been telling Chloe that Destiny and Malik were busy, or traveling, or any number of lies that sounded better than the truth. But 6-year-olds weren't easily fooled, especially ones who'd already learned that people they loved could disappear without warning. "No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. You could never do anything wrong." "Then why did she leave? Why did Malik leave?" Harrison closed his eyes, hating himself for the pain in his daughter's voice. Sometimes grown-ups make decisions that don't make sense to children. "Like when Mama went to heaven?" "No, sweetheart. That was different. That was an accident. This is..." He struggled to find words that wouldn't completely destroy his daughter's faith in the world. "This is grown-ups being afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid of making mistakes. Afraid of other people not understanding. Afraid of losing things that are important to them." Chloe was quiet for a long moment, processing this in the way that children do, with a clarity that often escaped adults. "Daddy, are you afraid too?" The simple question cut through all of Harrison's rationalizations and justifications. Yes. He was terrified. Terrified of his mother's disapproval, terrified of the custody battle, terrified of making the wrong choice for Chloe's future. But most of all, he was terrified of admitting how much Destiny had come to mean to him, how much he'd begun to hope for a future that included her and Malik. "Yes, princess. Daddy's been very afraid. But Auntie Dee always says that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared." Harrison's throat tightened. Even in her absence, Destiny was still teaching them both how to heal, how to be better. "She did say that, didn't she? So what's the right thing, Daddy?" Harrison looked down at his daughter, seeing Rachel's gentle wisdom in her eyes and his own stubborn determination in the set of her small jaw. Chloe was asking him to be the father she needed, not the son his mother demanded. "I think the right thing is to stop being afraid and start being honest." "With who?" "With myself. And with the people I love." Thursday morning, Harrison made 3 phone calls that would change everything. The first was to his assistant, canceling all meetings for the day. The second was to Eleanor, telling her he'd be returning her legal papers and signed. The third was to Dr. Peterson, asking him to meet for an emergency consultation. "Dr. Peterson, I need you to help me understand something," Harrison said when the therapist arrived at his office an hour later. "My daughter's recovery. What really caused it?" The older man adjusted his glasses thoughtfully. "As I've explained, Mr. Wells, trauma healing is complex. There's rarely a single causative factor. But there was a single moment when she spoke for the first time. A specific interaction with a specific person that broke through 8 months of silence. Yes, you mentioned the woman at the playground. It's not uncommon for breakthroughs to occur in social settings. What if I told you that this woman isn't a licensed therapist? That she learned her techniques from her grandmother in Jamaica? That she has no formal training in childhood psychology?" Dr. Peterson frowned. "Mr. Wells, while I appreciate that you want to acknowledge everyone who's helped Chloe, we need to be careful about attributing medical progress to unscientific methods." "But what if the unscientific methods worked better than the scientific ones? That would be anecdotal, not evidence-based." Harrison leaned forward. Doctor, my daughter was completely silent for 8 months under your care. Professional, evidence-based, expensive care. One story from this woman, and she spoke. One afternoon of play with this woman's son, and she laughed. 3 weeks of friendship with this family, and she was writing stories, making plans, engaging with life again. What does that tell you? That correlation doesn't imply causation. And what if I told you that since I stopped allowing Chloe to see this woman, she's regressed? That the nightmares are back, the silence is returning, the joy is gone. Dr. Peterson was quiet for a moment. Mr. Wells, are you asking me to validate an unorthodox treatment approach? I'm asking you to tell me honestly. Does it matter how Chloe healed, or only that she did? Of course the healing is what matters most. Then help me understand something else. Is it possible that Chloe's attachment to this woman and her son isn't unhealthy dependency, but rather healthy bonding? Is it possible that what looks like inappropriate emotional investment is actually exactly what she needed? Dr. Peterson removed his glasses and cleaned them carefully. Mr. Wells, in my professional opinion, your daughter's breakthrough came from feeling safe enough to express herself. The specific mechanism of that safety isn't as important as maintaining it. And if that safety comes from unconventional sources, then those sources should be protected and nurtured, not eliminated. After Dr. Peterson left, Harrison sat alone in his office, finally understanding what he needed to do. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he'd been avoiding for 5 days. Destiny? It's Harrison. We need to talk. They met at Franklin Park, at the same bench where everything had begun. Destiny arrived looking tired and sad, wearing a simple gray sweater that seemed to reflect her mood. She sat carefully, maintaining distance between them. "How's Chloe?" she asked immediately. "Not good. The nightmares are back. She's barely speaking. She keeps asking when she'll see you and Malik again." Destiny's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt her." "You didn't hurt her. I did. By being a coward." "Harrison. Let me finish. I let my mother's disapproval and my own fears convince me that what we have isn't real, isn't valuable, isn't worth fighting for. But watching Chloe this week, seeing her retreat back into herself, I finally understand something." "What?" "That healing isn't about protecting people from potential hurt. It's about giving them reasons to be brave enough to love again, even knowing that love comes with risk." Harrison turned to face her fully. "Destiny, you saved my daughter's life. Not metaphorically. Literally. She was disappearing before my eyes, and you brought her back. But more than that, you saved mine too." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I love you. I love your strength, your wisdom, your beautiful heart. I love how you see the world, how you heal without trying to fix, how you love without trying to possess. I love watching you with the children, seeing how naturally joy and laughter flow around you." Destiny's breath caught. "Harrison, I'm saying that I want us to be a family. Really and truly. I want to wake up in the same house as you and Malik every morning. I want to help him with homework and teach him to throw a baseball. I want to watch you help other children the way you helped Chloe. I want to build a life where healing and love and laughter are more important than social expectations or other people's approval." "What about your mother? The custody threat?" "I'll fight her if I have to. But I think when she sees how happy Chloe is with you, she'll come around. And if she doesn't, then I'll know I'm making the right choice anyway." "And if I say yes, if we try this, what happens when the newness wears off and real life sets in?" Harrison reached for her hands, holding them gently. "Then we figure it out together. Like families do. Like people who love each other do." Destiny searched his face, looking for doubt or hesitation. Finding none, she smiled through her tears. "Malik's been asking about Chloe every day. He made her a get-well card with pictures of birds on it. And what did you tell him? That sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but love finds a way to fix them if they're brave enough to let it. Harrison laughed, the sound rusty from disuse but real. Are you brave enough to let it? Are you? With you. I think I'm brave enough for anything. As they sat together on the bench where their story began, Harrison felt something shift inside him. The fear was still there, but it was overshadowed by hope, by certainty, by the absolute knowledge that some risks were worth taking and some love was worth fighting for. Tomorrow, he would pick up Chloe from school and bring her back to this park. Tomorrow, Destiny would be here with Malik and stories and laughter. Tomorrow, they would start building the life they'd both been too afraid to imagine. But today, sitting in the March sunshine with the woman who'd taught him that healing was possible, Harrison finally understood what Rachel had always tried to tell him. The best adventures were indeed the unplanned ones, and the most profound love often came from the most unexpected places. 3 months later, on a perfect Saturday morning in June, Franklin Park was alive with the sounds of the annual spring festival. Colorful tents dotted the green spaces, families picnicked on blankets under blooming trees, and children's laughter echoed across the playground where Harrison and Destiny's story had begun. Harrison stood near the small stage that had been set up for community presentations, watching as Chloe practiced her speech one final time. She wore a bright yellow dress that seemed to capture sunshine itself, her blonde curls adorned with small flowers that Malik had helped her pick that morning. In her hands, she clutched index cards covered in her careful 6-year-old handwriting. "You ready, princess?" Harrison asked, kneeling down to her level. "I think so, Daddy. But what if I forget what to say?" "Then you speak from your heart, just like Auntie Dee taught you. The most important words always come from there." Destiny approached them, radiant in a flowing coral dress that moved like music when she walked. Malik bounced beside her, wearing his best blue shirt and the biggest smile Harrison had ever seen. Over the past 3 months, that little boy had become the brother Chloe had always wanted, and watching them together never failed to fill Harrison's heart to overflowing. "How's our speaker feeling?" Destiny asked, placing a gentle hand on Chloe's shoulder. "A little nervous, but excited too." That's the perfect combination for saying something important. Harrison looked around at the crowd that had gathered for the festival. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of change, challenge, and ultimately, triumph. True to her word, Eleanor had initially followed through on her custody threat, but when the court-appointed child psychologist interviewed Chloe and witnessed her vibrant happiness with her extended family, the case had been quickly dismissed. Dr. Peterson had provided testimony about Chloe's remarkable progress, and even Eleanor's own lawyer had advised her to withdraw the petition. It had taken several more weeks of family therapy sessions, but Eleanor had eventually come to understand that her granddaughter's healing was more important than her social prejudices. The real breakthrough had come when Eleanor watched Destiny help a group of children at a trauma recovery workshop that Harrison had funded at Boston Children's Hospital. Seeing Destiny's natural gift with hurting children, her genuine compassion and wisdom, had finally convinced Eleanor that perhaps her son had found exactly the partner he and Chloe needed. "Ladies and gentlemen," the festival organizer announced from the stage, "we have a very special presentation today. 6-year-old Chloe Wells wants to share a story about community, healing, and the power of unexpected friendship." Harrison felt his heart swell with pride as Chloe walked confidently to the microphone. Just 6 months ago, she hadn't spoken a word. Now she was about to address a crowd of over 200 people. "Hi, everyone," Chloe began, her clear voice carrying across the park. "My name is Chloe, and I want to tell you about how I learned to talk again." She looked out at the crowd, spotting familiar faces. Mrs. Patterson sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Miss Beverly from the Jamaican restaurant beamed with pride. Even Eleanor was there, her stern expression softened with genuine affection as she watched her granddaughter. "Last year, something really sad happened to my family. My mama went to heaven in a car accident, and I was so scared and hurt that I forgot how to use my words. For a long time, I couldn't talk at all. My daddy tried everything to help me, and he found the best doctors and teachers, but the words were just stuck inside. Harrison felt Destiny's hand slip into his, her fingers intertwining with his own. The simple gesture grounded him, reminded him of how far they'd all come. Then one day, my daddy brought me to this park, right here where we're standing. I was sitting on that bench over there, feeling very alone, when I met a lady with the most beautiful smile and the kindest eyes. Her name is Destiny, but I call her Auntie D. Chloe gestured toward Destiny, who waved at the crowd with tears streaming down her cheeks. Auntie D told me a story about a little yellow bird who lost her song. The bird was very sad and couldn't remember how to sing, just like I couldn't remember how to talk. But in the story, the bird met some friends who were patient and kind, and slowly, with love and time, the bird found her voice again. The crowd was completely silent, hanging on every word of this little girl's profound testimony. When Auntie D finished the story, something magical happened. I whispered the word bird, and it was the first word I'd said in 8 months. My daddy cried happy tears, and I knew that maybe, just maybe, I could learn to sing again too. Chloe paused, looking directly at Harrison and Destiny. But the real magic wasn't just in that one story. It was in what happened next. Auntie D and her son Malik became our family. They taught me that families don't always look the same, but they always feel like love. They showed me that when something sad happens, it doesn't mean something wonderful can't happen too. Harrison thought about the past 3 months, about the daily adventures that had become their new normal. Destiny had moved into their Beacon Hill house in April, bringing with her a warmth and life that transformed every room. Malik had his own bedroom now, painted bright blue with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, and the sound of children's laughter filled the halls again. Harrison had also kept his promise to help Destiny expand her healing work. They'd established the Pearl Campbell Center for Childhood Trauma Recovery, named after Destiny's grandmother, offering traditional and culturally informed healing approaches alongside conventional therapy. The center served children from all backgrounds, and Destiny's methods had helped dozens of young people find their voices again. Today, I want to tell all the children here that if you've lost your words, or your song, or your smile, it's okay, Chloe continued. Healing takes time, and it's different for everyone. But if you're patient and you let people love you, the beautiful parts of yourself will come back. They might be a little different than before, but that's okay too. Sometimes the most beautiful songs come from hearts that have known sadness. She held up a small wooden bird that Malik had carved for her in art class. I keep this little bird to remember that my mama is always with me, and that love never really goes away. It just finds new ways to grow and new people to include. And I want everyone to know that there are people like Auntie D in this world, people who see your hurt and help you heal, not because they have to, but because that's what love does. The crowd erupted in applause, many people wiping away tears. Harrison felt his chest might burst with pride and love. His daughter wasn't just speaking, she was inspiring, teaching, spreading the wisdom that Destiny had shared with them. As Chloe left the stage, she was immediately enveloped in hugs from her chosen family. Harrison lifted her up, spinning her around as she giggled with delight. "That was incredible, Princess. I'm so proud of you. Did I do good, Auntie D? Baby girl, you did better than good. You spoke truth, and that's the most powerful thing anyone can do." Malik jumped up and down beside them. "Chloe, you're famous now." Everyone was crying happy tears. As the festival continued around them, the 4 of them found their way back to the bench where it all began. It seemed fitting to end this chapter of their story in the same place where the first chapter had started. "You know what I think we should do?" Harrison said, pulling out his phone. "What, Daddy?" "I think we should take a picture. Right here, right now. So we never forget this perfect day." They arranged themselves on and around the bench, Chloe and Malik in the middle, Harrison and Destiny's arms around all of them. As the camera timer counted down, Harrison looked around at these 3 people who had become his whole world. Destiny, who had taught him that love could heal anything and that families were built with intention, not just biology. Malik, who had shown Chloe that friendship could bloom anywhere and that joy was always possible. And Chloe, his brave, beautiful daughter who had found her voice not just to speak, but to help others find theirs too. "Say, family!" Chloe called out just as the camera clicked. "Family!" They all chorused together. Later that evening, as they sat around the dinner table in their Beacon Hill home, sharing stories from the festival and planning the next day's adventures, Harrison reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Rachel would have loved this, he thought. She would have loved Destiny's warmth, Malik's infectious laughter, and most of all, she would have loved seeing Chloe whole and happy again. Sometimes healing didn't mean forgetting the past or replacing what was lost. Sometimes it meant honoring those losses while building something new and beautiful from the pieces that remained. As Destiny helped the children with their bath time routine and Harrison cleaned up the kitchen, he heard Chloe's voice drift down from upstairs, telling Malik a story about a little yellow bird who learned that the most beautiful songs were the ones you sang with the people you loved most. The sound filled Harrison's heart with a peace he'd thought he'd lost forever. Their story, which had begun with silence and sorrow, had become a symphony of love, laughter, and healing that would play on for all the days to come. And in that moment, Harrison knew with absolute certainty that sometimes the most profound miracles began with the simplest acts of kindness between strangers who were meant to become family. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, wait until you see what's coming next. It's even more powerful and inspiring than you can imagine. So don't go anywhere. Click on that video showing on your screen right now to dive into another amazing story that will absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, you won't regret it.